Tires, and please let's make it interactive. If there's any questions, stop me at any time. I've got my two colleagues here. I think combined we've got about like 80 years in the industry. So if I can't answer a question, I'm sure one of my colleagues would be able to. And as I said, let's make it interactive. If there's anything, it's just going to be a basic tire training. First question is, who knows Apollo as a brand? Has anybody? No. Not yet. Okay, well. What about Vredestein?
Mountain bike tires.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to jump right into it. Specifically focusing on some off-road segment as well. And I've got some nice videos to show you too. So first let's talk about, or rather show you, Apollo.
Apollo tires. We're not just part of countless journeys. We're the unseen force behind them, pushing boundaries, unleashing the power of performance. But what drives us forward? Driving progress together, defining every moment where technology ignites the path of progress and innovation shapes our excellence in the global tire industry. In a world that's constantly evolving, our digital innovation hubs, centers where technology meets creativity, are pivotal to setting our dreams in motion through digitalization, artificial intelligence, and cutting-edge technology. We are already creating smarter, safer, and greener drives for tomorrow, today. A sharp focus on EV tires, crafted in our advanced, state-of-the-art R&D centers around the world, is leading the way in mobility solutions for the vehicles of the future. Sustainability is our compass, always guiding us to leave the world better than we found it. Every Apollo tire is crafted with precision and care, carrying the promise of a greener, more sustainable tomorrow. Behind the wheels of progress, there's always a human story to tell. Ours is a diverse, global family, driven by a passion for excellence, creating an environment where ideas bloom, cultures merge, and innovation thrives. As our journey unfolds, the essence of our brand comes alive. Apollo and Vredestein, two giants that represent our global identity, drive reliability, excellence, and innovation, marking our presence across continents, while also keeping our spirits racing in the heart-pounding world of sports, supporting dreams, fueling ambitions, inspiring the drive within. Through programs like United We Play, we're making a difference, one athlete at a time. From CSR projects, focusing on healthcare and livelihood programs, to a sharp focus on profitability, return on capital employed, and strong financial health, which underpins our strategy for growth and share value. Our journey is a tapestry of dreams, ambitions, and unwavering commitment. With every mile, we go the distance, together, shaping the future, where every journey holds the promise of discovery. Driving progress together. Apollo Tires.
Sure.
Yeah, so a lot to see in that video, a lot of segments that we do cover. And I think the video sometimes shows you more as well, I can tell you. But in any case, just a overview as well. We export into more than 100 countries. We've got 7 factories, 5 in India and 2 in Europe, 2 R&D centers with over 200 patents in various fields, 19,000 plus employees. So for the guys who don't know Apollo yet, I think you're starting to get a sense of the magnitude of the company. The important thing here, which most of the consumers don't know, is that we are 2 brands, and that Apollo owns Vredestein as a brand. And we're on our way to reach our revenue goal of $5 billion. Just some key milestones. The first foundation brick was laid in 1975. And another point that comes on is people used to confuse us with Dunlop, and still do till this day. So Apollo acquired Dunlop in 2006 and sold off Dunlop again in 2013. So yeah, just to clarify that as well. Just showing a bit of the timeline there. In 2009, acquired Vredestein. And today we're going to focus a bit more on the Vredestein product as well, so I want to show that. A brand new facility in Hungary, a greenfield facility, specifically in truck and bus radials, which we inaugurated. And here's a bit of the Vredestein side as well, a short one. The Vredestein brand, just shortly, is it's over 150 years old. So it's one of the oldest tire brands that there are. Some qualities is the thinking, the design. You'll see the Vredestein tire design is very detailed. They get specialized designers to really think about the design. It's very creative, and it's just on another level. We're talking about European quality when it comes to your certification, all of your processes, your standards. And then lastly, which is also the big one, is the performance edge in terms of what you actually get because they specialize in winter and summer tires, the off-road tires, performance is the key one, and it's really a premium brand. Just to show the legacy as well, started in 1909 and now in 2006 already. The two of the factories that we've mentioned, with the capacity of building 15,000 tires a day, just to express that as the magnitude of the manufacturing facility. And we are still expanding. You've seen in the video as well a big focus on sustainability, aspiring to achieve a zero waste to landfill by 2030. And globally, everybody's on a sustainability drive, so this is something that we also are heavily focused on. Some OE partners of the Apollo and Vredestein brand, and you would see your urban cruisers, a lot of your vehicles out of India and as well Europe. Some of the Audis already fitted with the Apollo or the Vredestein brand. Suzuki Swifts, there are many because we are flooded with them in South Africa already, but you'll see the Apollo product there. Not to mention the agri and the industrial side as well. So coming to the part which I think we were actually invited for this conference is a bit of the tire training. So it's going to be very basic at any time. As I said, please stop me if there's any questions. If there are students here, please, anytime. So what is a tire? A tire is a flexible structure filled with compressed air. What we need to remember is it's not the tire carrying the load, it's the actual air inside the tire. And fundamentally, we'll talk about the inflation pressure a lot today in the tire training. Functions of a tire is to support the load, change and maintaining the direction of travel, transferring braking forces and traction forces, and absorbing the road shocks. So that's fundamentally what it is. Some tire markings. There's a lot of tire markings specifically on passenger tires, which we need to be aware of. And I think the normal consumer out there doesn't maybe sometimes understand it, and that's why training is very important. First of all, when you read a tire size, for this one, 195, 55, 16, the 195 refers to something, the 55 refers to something, your radial, your R refers to something, and I'm going to show you in the next slides. So the 195 is your nominal section width, that's in millimeters, meaning that your tire is 195 wide and its width. The 55 is the aspect ratio. So the aspect ratio is that your section height is a percentage of your section width. So maybe if I can just show you on this side for those who know. So your section height is that percentage, which is there is 55, is a percentage of your section width. In this case, this should be a 60 or a 70 or 65. So meaning it's a 65 profile. 65% of your height is of the width. The R is for radial. What's happening?
As je te nog in die scherm doet.
Okay. Okay. Is this clear so far? Okay. 16. That's your diameter code. So it's a 16-inch rim. And the cooler side of it, the more technical side, is your load, index, and speed symbol. And we'll be talking a lot about that today. So for instance here, it's an 85V. I don't have the 85V here, but for instance, this specific tire would be a 120, which indicates that that specific tire can carry 1.4 tons or 1,400 kgs. So that's what the load index refers to. Then you've got your V, which is your speed symbol. In this case, the V signifies 240 kilometers per hour, which is the max speed there. Any questions on this?
Just to confirm, at some stage somebody told me that 240 kilometers per hour is for a maximum period of 3 hours.
Yeah.
Is there a limit attached to that?
No, specifically, it's best to refer to the actual manufacturer limit itself, but that's generally for an hour. Yeah, that's the maximum speed for that hour. But it does change as well, and as you stated as well, you should rather refer to the manufacturer specs. Yeah. And different tires would have different limits to that as well. So for a passenger car, it might be a certain amount, and it's very tricky.
To give a straight answer.
Yeah.
On the technical side of that, I mean, is the speed, that maximum speed rating, is that at the full load? So if it's a 1 ton load index,
Yeah,
is that
at the rated load, yeah.
Okay.
So if I may, they simulate, they put these tires on a simulation and let it run for an hour at a certain speed without failure. That means a pass.
Do they ever go beyond that hour? So like, they've done an hour tick, and then they're like, we'll do 2 hours.
Absolutely.
Do they?
They do it continuously until the tire fails.
And what's the longest time period would that tire be tested for?
It depends.
Just for interest's sake, I mean.
Yeah, so for a passenger tire, they'll run it to destruction at a certain speed, what Francois was mentioning, under load, and it might fail in 24 hours, it might fail in 48 hours only, but it will fail eventually.
Yeah, and then what you should also consider, or think about, is different manufacturers build in safety into their product as well. So it wouldn't be just that we have a percentage safety factor that we also build into each and every tire a different percentage. So yeah, depending on which brand you buy, that's something you should look at. And specifically, if I can maybe go a bit back, there's a UTQG sign on all passenger tires, not on the LT constructions, which we'll get to, but it's the uniform tire now grading system for your uniform tire quality grading system. So, for instance, you would see tread wear on the side of your passenger car tire. So your basis is 100, but your tire might say 300. It means that it would generally do 3 times more than a general government standardized tire. So the government has a standard. So that's something you should also look at. Look at the actual rating, and you would know what type of quality tire you are buying.
So just
Where are you going in such a rush?
I'm just planning the future. When I have rubber blank, you know.
So maybe just to add on to that, why will the tire fail? The tire will eventually fail because there's a lot of heat generation. Under that load and under that speed, the tire will disintegrate eventually because of the heat.
I think it's just important, especially when we do 4x4 training with the guys, we cover tires. And it's important to also to tell the guy, although you've got maybe the load rating is now fine, but you're now limited to 100 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
And then that person would think, I can now drive 100 kilometers per hour for 12 hours. If you don't tell him during training that 100 kilometers per hour is now maybe limited to an hour,
Yeah.
then you must stop. Or you should rather drive at 80 kilometers per hour than it's longer. Because we actually, the first front of off-road training, 4x4 training, where we tell these things to the guys, and if we don't tell it to them,
Yeah,
it's information that's gone missing.
exactly.
So we, in terms of the curriculums that I spoke about a little bit earlier, tire symbols and what it means is part of the mandatory stuff that must be taught as part of 4x4 training.
Exactly.
So that, I just wanted to confirm that, because you hear some of these things and I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. Thank you,
Yeah,
Douglas.
we'll get to a bit of that as well.
Yes, thanks.
In fact, yeah,
Yeah,
and
sure.
obviously, the lower you deflate your tire pressure, the higher is the heat buildup on the
Absolutely.
side. and the slower you have to drive, or the shorter distances you have to drive to reduce heat buildup.
Absolutely.
This
Yeah.
is the problem of having experts in the room.
They already know what I'm going to say. Yeah, but no, absolutely correct. And I think the biggest enemy of a tire is heat. As well.
I've got experience where instead of pumping up my tires to the standard pressure,
Yeah.
I drove a distance to get to a garage, and then I pumped the wheels over there. And eventually this one tire started leaking and it went flat, and I took it to the guys to fix, and they put it under water, and the whole side was like perforated.
Yeah.
You know, there were like 10 million little bubbles
Bubbles,
coming out.
yeah.
But okay, so that is one of the things that, so now I don't do that anymore.
Yes.
One last question, Anders, from my side. We spoke about temperature. What do the parameters look like for operating temperature of a tire? Because I know, like, if you're doing at load, at speed, I've seen tire temperatures like 60, 65, but at what temperature what should be the limit? So if I have a monitoring system, when should I alert myself that?
So a tire disintegrates at 103 degrees.
Okay.
So that's quite high.
It is.
Centigrade. Centigrade.
Celsius.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's quite high. So you can imagine driving a tire underinflated, how much the heat generates
Yeah.
before it really separates. And it's because of the flexing, you know, that continuous flexing causes the high heat generation.
It's very interesting because on my vehicle, I drove to the Galagadi, 54 degrees centigrade ambient temperature during midday on the tarred roads, and my tire pressure monitoring system gave me a temperature warning. And I saw the tires, and the sun was shining from the one side, and those two tires gave me a
warning.
warning. And when I looked, they were about, I think, 80 degrees. And then I realized I must drive slower, get some water or something.
But that's only
for a
part
pond.
of what you're saying. There's a lot of factors that's influencing this. It's not only the flexing, it's the ambient temperature outside, it's the road temperature, it's, you know, a lot of these things. But the 103 degrees is where it actually disintegrates.
Yeah,
At 80, you might experience separations.
yeah.
So the parameter would be like, at that point, you should probably.
You should stop and let it cool down. Yeah.
And not increase the sensor warning.
You said so long.
That's not the idea. Yeah, so we've received, and thank you for that as well, Johan. We've received some questions, which is generally asked in 4x4 discussions. And one of them was the actual composition of the raw materials, which are in tires. So this is just a generic one. It will definitely differ from manufacturer to manufacturer, depending on which application as well. Passenger tires would have something else a bit different. But here you can see natural rubber was one of the questions, the percentage split between natural rubber and synthetic rubber. So you can see in the olden days it was said to believe it's a lot more of the natural rubber. But through evolution things have changed a lot, and technology has helped. And also a lot of antioxidants and anti-aging materials, which gives your tires a longer tread life. And that's one of the things we are very proud of on our tire, specifically on mileage. We get phenomenal mileage, but we'll talk about that as well. And just to add to that composition of the tire, just a small slideshow of the actual tire manufacturing process, where you get your raw materials going into the mixer, and you get your steel cords along with that. The video is actually better to explain as well. You can actually see the visuals as well. The rubberizing, it all mixes together. The extrusion part, then that's only one piece of the material. Then you get your beads, and they add the beads to that. There you get the actual tire building, where you put your section with your inner liner and body plies along with the beads. Goes to the tire building process and then into the mold where the vulcanization happens. Then there's a bit of human control, as you've seen in that previous video, where the girls are actually rotating the tires and inspecting them, and a bit of automatic control, and then the tire is produced. One of the other questions that came up was specifically regarding patterns, and which pattern is used for which application. So specifically on the adventure side or the generic vehicles that are used, a lot of people drive SUVs, but they don't use it specifically off-road. But there might be a need from time to time to get onto a farm or to a lodge or whatever. And then you have a highway terrain focused tire. As you can see, the tread pattern there as well, which has not got a lot of NSD, non-skid depth or tread depth, meaning rubber. So generally you get to 8 to 9 millimeters of rubber. And then your on-road and off-road capabilities are split 90-10. Then you get one which is a bit more highway focused. We've got in between, which is our Apollo, but just like in a 2-ply, which we'll get to now as well, which is a bit more highway focused, but you do have off-road capabilities as well. And then you get the all-terrain tire, where in our one is split. It's on-road 60 and off-road 40%. Then you do get a rough terrain as well, which we've got here next to the all-terrain, which you're welcome to come stand up and have a look at the tread pattern now or later. And this is the actual tread pattern here as well, where on your rough terrain your split is for off-road 70% and off-road 30%. And generally on the rough terrains you'll start to hear people asking about road noise. They do ask about road noise on the all-terrain as well, but where it comes into play is on the rough terrain and on your mud terrain. We don't have a mud terrain, and that's why I didn't include a picture here, but on your mud terrain you're looking at off-road 90 and on-road 10%. Any questions on the patterns? I know that was one of the leading questions here.
Don't they sometimes have a little nip or something between or in the pattern that indicates that if you get to that little ridges or nips that your tire is now...
Yeah, tread wear indicator, and this tire will also see it. It's marked TWI, tread wear indicator. Okay. You actually can see, this is you're now on the limit you're shooting. Yeah.
The time life limit of tires, I know there's also some secrets about that.
We only have an hour. Generally we guarantee or warranty for 5 years manufacturing, and that's generally the standard on tires. If you are looking at buying tires, storing them, there are some pointers to do that to stabilize it or to keep it a bit longer. But generally it's 5 years. That's where the manufacturer said you've had it, you've had your opportunity to use it. But my view is that you can use some of the tires a bit longer if you've looked after them, if they were stored out of the sun in a temperature controlled room, not close to electrical equipment and stuff like that. There are some things, but I won't officially put my stamp on it.
Because unfortunately the insurance companies stick to that 5 years. When you're in an accident and the tires are older than 5 years, they say, your vehicle was not roadworthy, so we don't pay.
Johan, it's actually a really important point. And the importance is this: a tire gets vulcanized. Once all the ingredients in raw material gets into the tire and it's vulcanized inside of a press, the vulcanization process never stops. Remember that. That's why an old tire starts cracking, because the vulcanization process just keeps on going. So aging then becomes a problem. We're saying it's aging, but it's not actually aging, it's the vulcanization process that never stops.
Oh, it makes sense, yeah.
So to store tires, there's limits to it. And I remember my grandfather, for instance, he would say, I mean, you buy tires and after 3 years you'll fit them. You know, because they thought that it was, but it was like that in the old days. Today, I mean, we've got all the new technology and we can vulcanize the product instantly, and we can have the maturity of the product immediately, where we did not have that in the past. And that's why the insurance companies, you know, are on this.
Just another point as well is that remember the national average for driving your vehicle is about 30,000 kilometers per year. Times that by 5, it's 150,000 kilometers. And the likeliness that you are actually going to use your tire for 150,000 kilometers are not as likely. So, you know, if it's going to be 3 years, and it's going to be 90,000 kilometers. And that's where you sort of, as an overland guide, shouldn't wear or use your tires after that period, because it's not as reliable as it was in the first 90,000 kilometers. So that gives you a good national average in terms of why there's a 5-year value as well.
Absolutely. Another question was specifically the difference in a PC and an LT casing tire. And I'll refer to our tire specifically, which is we get it in our all-terrain tire in a 2-ply and in a 3-ply. The first noticeable thing is the speed rating, which we've seen in the previous slide. Generally, the 2-ply tires have the speed rating of H and T, which is 190 and 210 kilometers respectively. There's a lower number of body plies, which is generally a little bit of a less heat buildup. Hence the speed can increase a bit. The sidewall stiffness on the PC casing, which is or the 2-ply, it's less than that of the LT. They're a bit more optimized for ride comfort, although our 3-ply is really comfortable as well. And then obviously suited more for on-road. And where the big thing as well comes in is your tread depth though. So on the 2-ply you only get 9 mils, 9.1 to 10.1 millimeters of tread, where on our LT casings or the 3-ply you have 12.3. So I mean that's 20 to 25% more rubber just there, which is good, and that's where the life as well of the tires comes in. On the LT side, you'll see they are all rated S, and I'll show you a picture of that later as well, which is a max of 180 kilometers per hour. Stronger and thicker sidewall stiffness as we've mentioned, and this is generally for your off-roading on the 3-ply. Just an illustration of that, where you actually get your first body ply, your second body ply, and your third body ply on a 3-ply tire. And on that side, that's also just a generic one. It's a first and a second body ply. We have spoken about this now previously as well, but the impact of deflation on the sidewalls. So lowering the tire pressure in 4x4 vehicles during off-roading increases the tire's contact patch, spreading the vehicle's weight over a larger surface area. This is also a generic photo, but if you think about it, so that's a perfect correct air pressure contact patch. This is when it is high, so your shoulders lift and your tire becomes more oval, so your contact patch is very less. And when it's underinflated, you're basically driving on your shoulders of the tires, and that's where you will see them wearing a lot faster. So once you also view your tires on a your daily use vehicle, you can actually check if your tires might have an issue of underinflation or overinflated.
I saw pictures where a guy he made a painted print of his tire at the different pressures, and actually with a lower pressure, the tire footprint elongated.
Yeah.
It became longer rather than wider.
Yeah. That also makes sense, yeah? Oh, sorry, we wanted to add to that?
Just
Or?
a different comment.
No, I'm finished. I just wanted to say it clearly showed that it's one would think that the tire becomes wider and therefore carries more weight, but the footprint becomes actually longer.
Yeah.
So that has got a direct influence on the torque delivery of your vehicle through the low range section into your tire. So all of a sudden you've got more traction on the actual surface, which helps you to propel the vehicle forward at that longer footprint, for lack of a better word. But that's also where people sometimes would snap their side shafts. And I don't go into too much detail, but that is because there's too much traction.
Yeah.
Because of the deflated
Overstress. Yeah.
So the impact of that as well is you get a lot more sidewall flex, and as we've mentioned, so it's a bit of repeating, but you get a lot more sidewall flex, and that's where your internal heat pressure builds up, which is the enemy of the tire. If you run it at an extremely low pressure, you have there's a chance that you can actually have the tire get off of the rim. I don't know if you've seen it in application yet, but when you get to that, there's a possibility for that as well. When you drive underinflated, the rolling resistance becomes more, and that directly impacts on your fuel consumption as well.
You can maybe explain the dynamics of it. I think South Africa might be one of the unique countries where you inflate the tire at 1,500 meters above sea level, and then you spend an extended time at sea level type of scenario. What's the difference in terms of moving up sea level or down with tires inflated at a certain bar?
Well, that's a lacquer one. Normally, when we go down to the coast, I take my Bonaqua bottle. When I get to the coast, it's completely shrunk. So I think you should have the same view of that as well, and check your pressure when you're coming when you are this side, and you may be going down to the coast. You check your pressures again. I think it might have
No, it does. It does. The air pressure has got quite a significant influence. And what I found, and we often go to Mozambique, is you drive on the tar, and then you stop, you deflate the tire to the required pressure, and then you drive on the beach, and then the next morning you come and you look at your tires and you think, have I got a puncture? Yeah. Because the heat of the tire has now cooled down, and then it actually shrunk more. Yeah. And your tire is flatter than it was because it was hot when you let down the air.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when you're actually letting down the air on a heated tire, that's also a bit dangerous. You should rather wait a while if you don't want to use it again, or the next day check it again, and then do the according inflation deflation.
Yeah, so what we found was around 20 to 25% increase. So you've got to be careful. So when you deflate, take into consideration around about 20%.
Sure. So the recommended tire pressure that usually comes with this sort of tires, is that usually on cold tires?
Yes.
Yeah, always, yeah. And it also stipulates on your tire, which says cold inflation pressure. Yeah.
And weight, obviously, the weight as well.
I think we've also touched on this is the high-speed driving on stronger sidewalls at incorrect tire pressure. And I think fundamentally we shouldn't mention stronger sidewalls, but I think the question here or the key word here is tire pressure. If your tire pressure is wrong, if it's a stronger sidewall or a PC casing sidewall, the pressure will always be fundamentally the thing to look at. But nevertheless, again, the first thing that pops up is the excessive heat buildups, accelerated rubber compound degradation, which Quinton has also mentioned. You get your reduced structural strength, instability, vibration, if you're using it at that specific high speeds and it's overloaded and it's overinflated or underinflated. There are many risks going with that. here we get to the same thing which we've mentioned earlier, which is the load rating. So tires are designed to perform at the optimal efficiency under specified operating conditions which each manufacturer has, or you look at the sidewall of your tire. Overloading has massive stress on the tire, but I think the thing that stands out for me here is point number 4. During dynamic conditions such as braking or high-speed cornering, tire load can increase by up to 40%. Under overloaded conditions, this load transfer can rise significantly to up to 200%. And I think that's where your load index is key. When you are building an overlanding vehicle, you should understand what the weight is when you have fitted all your gear, your extra tire, your roof rack, your water cans, your National Luna or fridge or whatever, your sliders. At the end of the day, that vehicle is so heavy that your vehicle might be under-tired. And that's where we've seen people having blowouts, people having sidewall issues, and then they say it's a tire manufacturer, but never did they look at their load ratings actually to see if their tires can carry that load. So if you look at that percentage increase from a 40 to a 200%, that's massive, and it's a risk.
Just a question. I mean, I've got a good scale at home, but I don't think it will carry the car. Where can we go and weigh the car? So,
any weigh bridge.
Yeah,
just go to a weigh bridge. Or if you have load cells.
Yeah.
Truck load.
Yeah.
Pull off into one of those lanes.
Or a scrapyard. Scrapyard uses a lot of trucks to go over there.
Put a big magnet on your roof.
I've had an experience on a tour with this guy that the side walls of the tire actually tore physically, and they went off this useless brand of tire, etc., etc. And I stood back and I looked at the vehicle, I looked at the load rating, and I told him, your vehicle is currently, according to my guesstimate, about between 150 and 175% overloaded. That is why the tires are failing. He said, no ways. And he got angry with me. His vehicle is not overloaded until his friends convinced him about the overloading of his vehicle. But the first thing that he did was blame the tire.
Yeah, always.
Always. And that's why it's so important.
But the problem in this case manifested in the tires.
Yeah.
But your bearings, your everything is not designed for that.
Yeah.
And I always say that a car is designed as a system. And you change one thing of the system, like weight, put 40% more. You're going to now start getting problems on other stuff which weren't designed for 40%. And you don't want to have that car is going to take you somewhere, it's going to bring you back.
Yeah, and I mean, if through indoor testing they've assimilated that a 30% overload can reduce your tire life to up to 40%. So I mean, if you put that into perspective, if you don't have the right tires, you're going to buy tires. That's going to happen. And the key thing here, just it stays inflation pressure, heat. You should always look at the heat and ensure you're properly rigged.
And regular balancing and alignment. If you look at a regular road user and they've got to balance every 15 in a line, after every trip, it's necessary to go rebalance and look at your alignment due to the stresses on your suspension system.
Yeah.
People don't realize that, and then all of a sudden you're doing 10,000 kilometers and you're in where you can't even see the tire, gets worn off.
Yeah.
And then again, it's the manufacturer.
Yeah, we as a rule, I mean, we rotate every 10,000. Some people do it 8. If you have a rough terrain or a mud terrain, they even go to 5,000 kilometers.
But the public, and that's part of, I think, what we can do together, is to educate the public, especially with new people entering into the market, they don't necessarily know that. They just think tyre maintenance is the same on a recreational vehicle than on a passenger. And there's no one.
I'm assuming every tire holds the same amount of weight. So you can just take your total weight of your car and divide by 4 to get a rated load.
You meaning every tire on your vehicle?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's the same tires, the same load index, you need to have a look at the load index. So if you have different tires on your car, you might have an issue. But if it's the same thing, no, it should be. It's exactly the same now.
There's one problem with the thinking process from a consumer perspective on tires. You know that the tire is the first contact point to the road.
The only contact point.
And what is sad about it is when you buy tires, you want the cheapest. Or you'll skimp on it. You'll buy something at a lesser price or lesser quality or lesser load rating or speed rating or whatever. Not thinking about this is the first contact point to the road.
Also, what people don't appreciate, you look at a load rating and on a level surface, everything's sort of fine. But when you're driving off-road, at some point in time, almost all the weight of the vehicle will be on 2 tires.
Yeah.
Then the load rating on that side is gone through the roof.
Yeah.
And when packing and driving, one must also take that into account and build a safety factor into what you actually load onto your vehicle and what the tires can actually do, because we do a quite steep side angle and the wheel goes over a rock. Most of the load is on one wheel.
Yeah, that's where you get your sidewall damages, or in worst case, hopefully not, your tire jumps off of the rim if it's underinflated specifically.
Even on just slow off-roading, if you're doing heavy load vehicles and you're going undulating terrain, just that momentum shift going through dips, because people used to accelerate to get through. If it's not, I mean, if you're doing like a 5 meter wide, nice provincial gravel road, it's like accelerating through those dips, that momentum carrying into tires, like increases the workload dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear some of the other guys talk.
Choosing the right tire for your specific environment is crucial. In Africa, we have many different environments. The tires need to be designed in such a way that it can handle whatever Africa throws at it. The team from Apollo Tyres set out on a journey to Botswana, one of Southern Africa's truly wild destinations. Along for the ride, competition winners and Apollo Tyre dealers to see what the Apollo Optera 82 can do in harsh four-wheel drive conditions.
And I'll be your tour guide for this session, and we hope that you enjoyed your trip ahead of us. We are now entering into Botswana.
The team made their way to Gweta Lodge, where the first activity of the trip is to camp underneath the stars on the famous Magadi Plains. The evening was spent relaxing in the middle of nowhere, with dinner on the spot and the guests getting to know each other around the campfire. Activity number 2, visiting the second largest zebra migration in the world. En route, a cute meerkat colony not too far from our campsite.
telling you more about the Apollo Aptera 82 tire, which is an all-terrain tire. We have it in two variants. It's a PC casing, passenger car casing, as well as a light truck casing. On this trip, we've got predominantly the light truck casings, which is perfectly suited coming from South Africa side through Botswana, facing all the various challenges. First of all, the tar roads, potholes, dirt roads, then very thick sand. We have a very thick sidewall. It's a 3-ply casing, so it's very robust, and it's perfectly suited to run in underinflated conditions.
Day 3 was spent in the Nai National Park, visiting the famous Baines Baobabs. These roads were challenging, to say the least.
Our tire is very competitively priced in the all-terrain segment. You will see on the shoulder side we have sawtooth technology, which gives a lot of traction and grip in underinflated conditions. And we have a multi-directional tread block design, which gives phenomenal grip.
It was time to head home from the epic journey in Botswana to our final destination, Kubu Island.
At Apollo Tyres, we believe that bad roads lead to good places, and that belief was truly tested with a 4x4 Apollo Tyres 82 Botswana trip. And I'm happy to report that we passed with flying colours.
We've seen some very, very incredible things. Myself and my fiance have had an absolute great time here with the whole crew, and it's just been an amazing experience.
If you use SUV, a modern SUV, a modern vehicle that runs on 19 inches, 20 inches, use the Apollo Aptera 82. We've used them in all of the circumstances, no hassles whatsoever, just absolutely exceptional.
I've been in the tyre business for about 40 plus years. We've experienced everything, and the tyre has really, really impressed me. Knowing the price of the tyre and the opposition and the competition, the tyre is exceptionally well priced. We've also driven it at low pressure. We were driving it yesterday at 0.8 pressure on a two-wheel drive through thick sand, and we tested the temperature of the tyre afterwards, and you could hold your hand on that tyre indefinitely. If you're looking for an all-road tyre that can take you all over the show, this is it.
There's times when you need to brake heavily, we need to swerve, etc. And I know that there's the braking and the fancy things in the car. That's not as important as the rubber on the road. Having purchased Apollo tyres, I was fortunate enough to be chosen as one of those that could share with them their adventures into Africa to demonstrate what my choice of tyre could actually do for me. The decision and the knowledge of the Apollo tyre salespeople have led me to know that that decision and that choice that I envisaged of them knowing what they're talking about is absolutely so.
And with that, an experience of a lifetime came to an end. With the Apollo Aptera 82 tyres, we conquered some unforgiving landscapes and dominated new terrains, discovering the thrill of an off-road adventure like never before.
Wanneer gaan ons?
Volgende jaar, next year, April, March. Yeah, so I think for the adventure industry, this answers a lot of questions in terms of why you need to use a specific tire. Obviously, we're punting our product, and thank you for the opportunity. But I think it's it speaks a lot about what we've just said. Just some of the characteristics that was already mentioned in this video as well. The compounding, which we've mentioned, which is it gives you a lot of kilometers. I mean, we've got guys in the Northern Cape on the mine specific. I think 182,000 kilometers on an iron ore mine, which is phenomenal. I think if you cross 100,000 kilometers with an all-terrain tire, you've got your money's worth. The shoulder tooth design, specifically when you a bit more underinflated, those blocks help immensely with your traction as well. Interlocking sipes for your tread block stability. The high tensile steel belts, which helps with carrying the loads. Something that our beads have is it's a hexa bead, and it's jointless, so it doesn't overlap anywhere. So the chances of your bead breaking or your bead actually jumping off of the rim is lessened a lot. So very good technology in our tire specifically. And then stone ejectors, which is very, very important. And pleasant driving. I think because you're not always off-roading. You're taking that vehicle to work on a daily basis, some of us. Sometimes you only use them on a weekend. So it's a very pleasant drive, our 3-ply tires and the 2-plies as well. From the testing side, I see the time has caught us up a bit. If you'd like to, I'd play you one last video on the testing side of it.
Africa is renowned for some of the most breathtaking landscapes and scenery in the world. But within its beauty, this continent possesses a few challenges, such as extreme weather conditions, uneven surfaces, and long-distance traveling. For a 4x4 owner, having a good vehicle is crucial, but it doesn't matter how good of an off-road vehicle it is, it can only go as far as the tires permitted to go. Apollo Tyres went on a 5-day, 3,000-kilometer journey from Johannesburg in Gauteng through the Northern Cape and all the way to Namibia and back to test a brand new product that they are launching onto the market.
We're excited to launch the new Apollo Aptera AT2 tyre. Comes in 3 variants: a passenger, 2-ply and 3-ply design. We've got a unique tread pattern which ultimately helps with the adverse conditions the African and Southern Africa regions offer. It's got unique stone injectors.
The Apollo Aptera AT2 tires were fitted to 5 4x4 Toyota vehicles.
As part of the Apollo tyre testing, we have introduced a number of vehicles, namely a Prado, a Land Cruiser pickup, double cab, extra cab, as well as the Fortuner.
This one-day journey tested the road-holding ability of the tires and its abilities to handle heat. The extreme Northern Cape conditions also made things interesting, and the team pushed the product to its limits.
The performance of the product far exceeds the expectations, and there's always a need from customers, to have a product that really performs well on gravel roads as well as tar roads. Testing the new Apollo Aptera AT2, it's a stunning product. It's quiet on the roads, the road holding is exceptional. I think we've really got a winner that will surprise everybody.
The tar road test is certainly the easiest part and only the beginning. Now it was time for the team to cross the border into Namibia, which is famous for having really tough terrain in some parts. For that, you're going to have to do a few final checks to make sure you have a safe journey. On the second day, the team traveled via Narco Quarter Post to Arnhemsvlei. The first challenge started with an open gravel road, followed by river crossing and navigating over obstacles such as rocks and uneven terrain. The team held nothing back as they were driving through the famous Fish River Canyon in South Namibia. The Fish River Canyon is the largest of its kind in Africa at 160 kilometers long and some places almost 550 meters deep.
So we've done over 1,000 kilometers of harsh conditions of gravel roads and extreme rock driving through the tires on the rocks, and we've tested them thoroughly.
Day 3 was the ultimate day of testing. In the vicinity of the Fish River Canyon, the team came out all guns blazing and were determined to put the Apollo Aptera 82 tires to the test. River crossings and rock climbing proved to be within easy reach, and the highlight of the day was some high-speed driving on the sand dunes. Set within the coastal desert of Namibia are some of the largest sand dunes in the world. Temperatures here can reach more than 40 degrees Celsius, and the dense sand makes it a perfect place for extreme off-road driving. The terrain permitted the team to test the tire's design emphasis on nose quality, ride comfort, and traction, while still maintaining off-road capability.
We are satisfied with the results that we have found thus far. Low heat generation in a deflated condition, tires response in sand dune and gravel road.
The highlights for me personally was with the high-speed dunes that we've done. I drove the Fortuner myself, and the performance of those tires on that soft sand on high speed was amazing.
Some of the other findings that became evident during this test was that the tire responded very quickly to steering inputs, with very little feel or feedback through the wheel. Ride quality proved to be relatively soft, with little to no boom and a light drone over impacts. The tire combines two essential qualities that are required on off-road vehicles, namely high-level traction and enhanced toughness. Advanced traction and grip were also one of the highlights of the overall driving experience. Needless to say, the tires could thoroughly prove their robustness and extra durable construction in these hot and dry conditions.
We're excited for the launch of this product that will complete our range for this evolving market. Our partners that joined us on this trip are very satisfied with the tires' performance.
For 34 years I've been involved in the 4x4 industry. I've had various makes, various types of tires, all fitted to my vehicles. Well, what can we say? The tire has proven itself, it's working, and it's definitely the one to be looking at.
Being in the tire industry for the last 23 years, was really the performance of the product. It was really surprising, the ability on the road, the ability in the sand. I mean, we even took it into the river and went onto a few rocks, slippery rocks, and the product performed exceptionally as well. So there's no area where the product at any stage let us down.
The team was grateful to have confirmed the tire's potential on one of the most beautiful, real-world testing grounds in the world. This new Apollo product has all the potential they were hoping for, and it seems the market is ready for its product to take the reins.